Good morning, good evening, good afternoon. Depends on where you're located on the planet. Dr. Wayne E. Brown here with another edition of Webb International Institute Eyes on our MBA and undergraduate students. Okay, thank you so much for continually watching and supporting. With that said, before we move on, I guys want you to just take a minute. Definitely like the channel, okay? Definitely subscribe to the channel. I mentioned this before, I'm trying to get to 100,000 subs ASAP, but it can't happen without your support, so take your time and definitely like the channel right now. My special guest today, Miss Regan Robinson.
Yes.
I paused there because Miss Robinson has a unique and special identity that we're going to talk about here today. She's going to jump in. She's going to talk first off by giving a self-introduction. Then we're going to move into some Q&A about why she is in business school and why she is earning that degree to get to the next step in her life. We're going to cover those things. We're going to talk about those things. But first and foremost, let's have a self-introduction. Ms. Regan, please introduce yourself.
Hello, I'm Regan Michelle Robinson, and I am located here in Okinawa, Japan.
Okinawa, Japan. I'm going to turn here just a little bit.
Sure.
So, first of all, where are you from?
Originally from Indianapolis, Indiana.
Okay. Indianapolis, Indiana. And let's talk a little bit about going back to high school. Okay, let's start off with high school.
Okay.
What high school did you go to? And right after graduation, what took place next?
I went to Hilton High School, which is located in Manassas, Virginia. We're a military family, Army. And right after high school, I tried to join the military. That was my official initial goal.
You said you tried to join the military.
I tried, meaning I went through the steps. I took the test, I went through MEVs, and went through the next step was MEV boards. And it wasn't that I couldn't go, there was just something that just stopped me from pursuing that. I think because I was being led and pursued the goal only because, well, at that time, my friends were going. Who is my husband now, was my boyfriend at the time, was joining the military. So it made sense to join the military because financially, we didn't have the means for me to go to school. It was told, by the instructor or by the recruiters that I could go join the military and they would pay for me to go to school. So I could kill two birds with one stone and I would have this skill and they would train me and I would have a place to live and I could travel the world all while still going to school for free on the government. That was the perception that I was given. And then after sitting and talking with some of the other recruits and finding out that that wasn't all the truth and that, that there was stipulations there that weren't made very clear in my initial.
So, to join the military, one means was the travel aspect, but you're saying too,
yes,
what superseded that or what was most important was that educational piece.
That was my main focus of it. I wanted to travel, but then I kept thinking, in my world or my thought process was that I wanted to have a degree. I remember having a poster in my room of Morgan State University and talking to a rep from Morgan State and thinking that that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to go to Morgan State. Didn't have money for Morgan State. Didn't have the grades. I wasn't an athlete. And so I had to default. And it was either my mother's rule in the house was either you work or you go to school. And there was no, well, I'll kind of, take a year off. No, there was none of that. It was like after 18, you're no longer in school, you're an adult now. You need to make adult decisions. And that's kind of where it was. And I was like, well, then I don't want to live here. If I can't, have company when I want, go and come as I please. And it was like, no, you're not going to do that here, even if you pay rent. And we did. And that was the thought process was that, well, if I go off to school, then I can, I can be my own person. I can be an adult.
Even at that time, we're talking about 18, 19.
18 20, years
right?
old. Mm-hmm.
So let's look at it in terms of this. Did you have an idea of what direction in life that you want to do? So if you said, I'm going to go to school, did you know at that time what you wanted to go to school for?
I thought I did, and looking back, I had no idea. And I'm so glad I did wait, because I would have essentially went to school and wasted my mother's money that she did have, as well as my own money and time. Because in my thought process, I thought that school was going to be like it was on TV. I thought it was going to be fun. I thought it was going to be interesting. I thought it was going to be innovative, and I was going to go off and find myself. And then I was going to, rebuild my thought process. I thought I wanted to be a nurse. That was my first thought. I thought, I'll go to this nursing program. And then after further research and realize that nursing school is not cheap or easy. Then I remember speaking with, at a college night, one of the reps was from Coca-Cola. And I remember seeing this lady, she had this beautiful bright red suit, these gold buttons all down the front, and she was giving out Cokes. That's all she was doing. But in the process, she was also talking about the different programs and offers that Coca-Cola offered, and one of them was scholarships. And so of course I'm trying to fill out everything I can to get money to go to school. And one of the things, and one of the guys that was standing there talked to her and asked her how did she get into the job that she was in. And she went to school for public relations. And I was sold. The first thing she said was that you get to go around to all these places and all these countries and talk to people. And
with a public relations degree.
Right.
Okay.
And I thought, that's what I'll do. I'm a great talker. I'm a great communicator. And I remember going home and telling my stepdad, yeah, I'm going to go to school for public relations. And I remember him saying, that's like the first time you've made sense.
Yeah.
And said something that I can actually see you doing, because I was always talkative.
Right, so the background, the degree fit your personality.
Definitely. And I thought, this is what I've been looking to do. That I just didn't even know that there was such a thing. That someone will pay me to go out and talk to people about something that I'm knowledgeable in or something that I'm passionate about. Who wouldn't want to do that? And I thought this was probably the best thing ever. And then that's when it became the reality that there's other things that need to be done. There's still 2 to 3 years of schooling that needs to be taken. That's in my current situation, $2,000 or $3,000 that I didn't have access to. And that was just the beginning. My mother worked 2 jobs. She was a single parent. Although she and my father, he's not my biological father, at the time, were not legally married. He offered to, pay a portion of it, but the both of them were not well off. And I just felt to have to put my mom in that position, it still would have further, it would hinder her focus in she was in the process of trying to keep her home. Okay. And the process of a really bad divorce. And this was her second divorce at that time. So it was quite a struggle. And so I just thought, what are the different ways and things that I could do to make it less stressful on her?
So let me ask you this, because we've had this conversation, and there were some influential people in your life.
Oh God, yes.
That actually inspired you from the point of view to say, hey, kind of got you on the track or the thought process of military, who got you on the process of going to education. One specific woman in particular, and I'm going to say, I think based on our conversation, she might have been somebody who you aspired to be like.
Yes.
An African American woman.
Yes.
Who gave you some advice and who pretty much just kind of stepped in and said, consider this route and this is what the end result will look like.
Right. Yes.
Talk a little bit about that.
So Tyson Carwell. So I was initially, I married a military member, and I still kind of didn't know what I really wanted to do. I was working. I pursued, later on I pursued dental as a profession, and I met this young lady who was active duty military at the time. I was looking to seek, out some type of almost like a mentor you can think of, and she was actually over the program that I entered. And we actually met on just a personal level one day, and we started talking, and I started thinking, what am I going to do with this after it's all done? What are the options? And she was telling us, not even just us at the class, but she told me on a personal level one day, she was like, there's so many things that you can do. Don't just stop with this program. When you get back to the States, you can do your own contracting. You can pursue your CDF, which is your expanded functions. You can be like a traveling dental tech or nurse, which they make a lot of money.
Very true.
Yes, she talked about going back and doing dental hygiene. She talked about going back and specializing in pediatrician, working with children. That was something that I enjoyed as well. Pediatric dentistry, and focusing on a specific specialty and not just limiting to yourself to just being general dentistry and having that focus. And I kept him in high. I kept thinking, I'm still a mom, I'm a wife, and I never wanted those things to become an obstacle, but they were. And I wanted to be a good mom and a good wife. And part of that, it was being an active duty military spouse. You're gone somewhere, 3 to 5 years, overseas, stateside, countryside, citywide. You never know where you're going to be.
So it's on one ground, though, in all of this, the travel side actually did come into play. The educational component was missing.
It was very much so. But
you were still able to do some of the travels and whatnot.
I was, and I didn't realize how much work it was going to be involved with the moving. I enjoyed it. I loved it. Living in abroad, living in Europe, living in Asia. But there comes that part too, where once you get your foot in the door, you get comfortable with an environment, you start getting settled with a job, you start knocking out your courses, you have a degree plan, you have everything you think mapped out in front of you, and then boom, you're gone.
Let me ask you this, because hindsight is always at 20/20, right? Hindsight meaning 20/20. When you look back and say, okay, 20 years ago, I would have done this differently. 10 years ago, I would have done this differently. 5 years ago, I would have done this differently. Okay, so this is kind of this hindsight view. Yes. Hindsight, when you look back and say, okay, I decided to take this course in my life. It means I'm going to put my educational endeavors, I'm going to put my educational dreams and goals on hold for the time being because of responsibilities such as family.
Yes.
Primarily because of family.
Yes.
Number one. But looking back hindsight, let's just say this. You have children now, so hindsight, how would you look at your own experience and say, tell your children, this is what you should do? I may have not been given this advice directly. However, I will give you this advice directly based on my experience. What would you give your children advice? I mean, in a very direct sense. What would you tell them as it relates to education? What would you say?
I actually have a son in college right now. He's 19 years old, and I tell Isaiah all the time, do something that you enjoy. Don't focus so much on the amount of money that you're going to make, but something that you feel passionate about, that you're going to enjoy going to every day. It's not going to feel like a job. It's going to feel interesting. It's going to be fun. You're going to feel fulfilled at the end of the day. There's going to be a time when you're going to go to work and you're not going to leave because you've gotten so much done and you're going to be enjoying so much that your days are going to fly by.
So say, for example, yourself, where you've had some direction, you thought about nursing.
Yes.
You thought about some of the other things, other core subject matter, because you actually came from a family, as you mentioned to me in private, just that your father had a business.
Yes.
There was a family business going on. So you was
Yes.
integrated. You saw some of the formations of business, and now you're actually in business. You're studying business. But you had a lot of that ice being broken growing up, right?
Yes.
So for your son now, who is actually in college, you just mentioned choose something that you like.
Yes.
Be very clear about it. Would you say that make decisions as early as possible? Try to figure it out as early as possible. What would you tell him or another young person who's watching about making decisions early?
I wouldn't hinder it. I would say make the decision early, but feel that you have that wiggle room. Always be open to try new things. But yes, choose something that you're passionate about, that you think you're going to enjoy, that you know you can thrive in. You're not going to prosper and you're not going to thrive in something that you dread doing. Just like any other class or any type of subject that you procrastinate to do your homework. You procrastinate to go to the class. There's times when you don't even want to go to class. These are not the subjects and the places and the careers that you're going to want to be focused in, and you know you're going to have to go to 5 days a week for 8 to 10 hours a day. Don't go into accounting if you dread going to math, or you struggle with math, or you get physically sick because you know you're going to have to go and deal with these things. And for somebody young and new to the environment, or to coming out of college and going towards, or coming from the workman career job place, to say I'm going to go to school to further my career. Some people don't go to school for the wrong reasons. They're in a position that they make a reasonable amount of money, but they know that they found out that in order for me to excel in this company, this is what I need to do. And the majority of the time is you need a degree, a college degree. I too fell victim of this. Years ago, someone said, if you really want to go further with this company, if you really want to pursue other things and other avenues within this company or within this realm, you need to have a 4-year college degree. And I thought, that's what I'm going to do. Not realizing that this really wasn't for me. I worked this was right out of high school. I worked part-time, and then I wound up being hired full-time and working for a company. I don't want to say, should I say the name of the company?
That's fine.
And so, it wasn't a bad job. I mean, there were so many opportunities, and they loved to have had me to pursue more, but they had to be able to justify paying me at 20 years old X amount of dollars to sit and speak in a room full of board directors and people who were advising on this business to help its growth. And they couldn't justify that. My boss said, she was like, I cannot justify saying, other than having you sit here in the room as a proxy. And that's why I told you before, I didn't say a word, because I looked around this room and I thought, man, I'm the only woman of color. I'm the youngest person in this room. And the biggest thing that hindered me from speaking up in that room was I felt like I was beneath them. I was not, I didn't have any degrees, much less an associate's. And everyone in that room had a bachelor's, if not higher.
Let me jump in and give some opinion here, okay? What she's actually describing is saying, listen, I'm in a room now where other people have 4-year degrees.
Yes.
I did not have a degree. Am I any less intelligent than these people? Not at all, okay? However, they do have something over me, this leverage, this kind of bargaining chip over me, which is a degree, okay? And in many occupations, that degree does grant you access. It does grant you a higher pay scale. It does get you in the door. So as much as I want to say, go on out there and start your own business. You've heard me many times talk about the entrepreneurial approach. Wonderful. Do that by all means. However, if you're in the working environment, which the majority people are, that leverage is, in many cases, that degree. Now, you do have to back it up, of course, with experience, and especially depends on what particular field that you have your degree in. If you're in IT and engineering, that might be a degree, but you're going to need certifications to boost that up because it's such a fast changing field. If you're in the area of business, okay, there's also certificates that you can get that will also boost you up. In her case, what she's looking at is a kind of view of a psychological view that says, look, I'm surrounded by people. For one, I'm a woman of color. I'm a woman of color. And on top of that, I feel additional pressure because I don't feel competitive with others who have this degree.
Yeah.
Now, arguably, that's all that it is. It's a psychological view, okay? That's all it is. It's really not something to say that you're any less intelligent, but it is a psychological piece that some can achieve without having that piece of paper. Mm-hmm. By saying, piece of paper or not, I deserve to be at this table.
That's right.
I will speak and I will deliver. Fine. In the other positions, a degree does reinforce your positioning and it does reinforce your bargaining power.
Exactly.
So we're going to advance this now to say you're here now and you're going back to get that degree.
Yes, I am.
So touche to you for that.
I'm so excited.
Because I've heard that you just said that you are a mother.
Yes.
And you've only mentioned one of your sons.
Yes, I have 2 boys.
You have 2 boys.
Yeah.
and one is in college, and you're that active mother that's saying, listen, I put my children in school, but nevertheless, I'm going to get back in there and I'm going to do it for myself now.
Oh, yes.
And a lot of people are in that same position. So what do you have to say to others who are just like you in that same position?
So don't be afraid to do it. You're never too old. It's never too late. I hem and hawed. I said, if after I reach 35, everybody thinks if you reach 40, if you reach 50. And I finally decided to not put a number on it. If it took me 10 years, if it took me 5 years, it didn't matter how long it took me. If I had to sit out a semester, and I've had to rearrange my schedule. I've had to drop courses because my son's basketball at the time, soccer, everything was coming at it. Just so happened that soccer was the same night as my course that particular session. And it was frustrating, and my husband was deployed, and it was like these weren't things that you can't script, you can't project out and say, oh, when I registered for my course, I thought, oh yeah, sure, Mondays and Wednesdays from 8 to 9 to 5 or 8 to 5 or whatever the course was that night. It wasn't an issue. And then literally the month of, we got to our third week of class, my son comes home with a schedule. You don't get to choose, and next thing I know, it's like he has soccer practice literally the same night at the same time. And I thought, how am I going to get him there, pick him up, and get to class?
And you're juggling, but you're doing it.
You are. And
it's a juggling act.
It is. And there were times when, you want to pull your hair out. And like I was telling you before, you asked, like, what keeps you going when you get to that point? Because you get burned out. As a mom, you get burned out as a student, because even after it's all said and done, even after you get home at the end of the day, and I work as well, you work all day, then you come home, you still have to check homework, you still have to, make sure that children have done bathed and fed, and I'm do majority of those things in my household, because my husband is, he travels quite a bit because of his job. And so a lot of that is left to me, and I said, before, when I come home, you sit down and take your shoes off and relax and think, what am I going to make for dinner? And it's just like, and I keep thinking, I don't want to get up. I don't want to move. I don't want to do anything right now. And then I tell myself, but if I don't, who does? And it's the same thing. It's no different with school. If I don't get up and make myself go to class, if I don't get up and put forth the effort to do my homework, and I'll take a nap and wake up at 10 o'clock at night and do my homework before the night's over, or make time to do it during my lunch hour the next day at work, or after work. I will go to class an hour and a half earlier and sit there in the library, or I'll sit there in the lab and do whatever I need to do, because if I don't do it, it won't get done. And that's where that perseverance and that drive comes from.
She's talking about mindset.
Yes.
You've heard me say this again. You got to have that mindset, and the mindset is being very determined.
You want it more than anything.
Yes.
More than anything, and you want it for yourself. I'm not doing this for anybody else. I can also say, before I wanted my boys to understand and see that it can be done, but if I had to choose, I would prefer that they did it before having a family. But at the end of the day, I'm doing this for me. Like, it's something that I've dreamt of, and I keep dreaming about it and waking up and thinking, okay, what can I do today that's going to bring me that much closer to this goal? Every day, I have to keep
reinforcing
every day, and I write it down. I keep a little planner, and every day there's something in my planner. And there's some days when I may not even look at that. I may not even get to it, but that next day, that's the first thing I do in the morning. I look at my weekend, I look at my plan, and I say, okay, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, what are you going to do that's going to get you that much closer? And some weeks I feel like I've achieved so much and I've got so much done, and there's some weeks I don't. And instead of me beating myself up about it and getting on myself and being hard on myself about, man, you didn't do jack this week, I stick to my guns and I say, okay, yeah, you weren't as productive as you could have been last week. So what are we going to do this week to make up for what you didn't do last week? You're going to work harder.
Mindset. And she has a mindset that it's going to happen, and you're determined.
I know. And I can't wait. I told somebody before, they asked me, what are you going to do with your degree, outside of pursuing your goals and your aspects of it. One of the things I said in the interview, and when I was actually the rep for the school, my pictures were up in there, and he asked me what did it mean, or what was I going to do with my degree. And I said, it's the one thing that I felt like that no one can take from me. You know, you can get jobs and people can take away titles, they can take away promotions. You can be released from a five-fortune company. You know, you can get into this great relationship or marriage, and that person can take anything they want from you, emotionally, physically, all the tangible, material things from you at the end of that marriage or the end of that relationship. But this is the one thing that I've worked hard for, that I've put into, that I've paid for, that nobody can take from me. And that's the one thing that I have stuck to, and I'm very, very interested in being able to say, you know what, I joked with somebody and I said, if I don't do anything with my degree but hang it on the wall, somebody said it'd be the best wallpaper ever. If I want to wipe my hind parts with it, it's mine.
That's your personal achievement.
It's mine.
Yes.
And I've earned this like nothing else. It's not like earning a paycheck every 2 weeks. This is something that I've put a lot of thought and a lot of focus and a lot of energy into. And I think once accomplishing this one thing, for me, it's going to make me realize that all the other dreams and goals and dreams that I have for myself are going to be that much more easy to achieve.
Excellent.
Yes.
What we're going to do is we're going to take some Q&A. And I want to read this card as I do from everybody. This is my magic bag, right? You guys have seen this before. What does it say? Take you good places. Enjoy the moment. Always friendly. Adventure begins. You started your adventure. We've all started our personal adventures. Mm-hmm. She's going to read a couple of these questions and give an answer. Let's just start off. Choose any card you like.
Oh, okay. Did you split them up?
They're all mixed up.
Okay. Okay. How will you know when you are successful? I think there's no way to measure success. It's not by money, by wealth, or I think once you reach a level of contentment, when you have satisfied the necessary achievements and goals that you've put in place for yourself. I think that's
it's definitely not monetary.
No. Okay. I think because monetary can always that will come and
go.
Well,
it could be monetary.
It could be, but for me, you can never put a number value on success, because it's like, who's to say what's enough money? I mean, I could be a millionaire, but there's more money. You know, you buy $1 million house and then what? You're back at ground zero. I could be a billionaire, but with all that money and all those things, homes, cars, all these things.
Well, for you, would you say
happy.
that is a combination? Is money is also part? Because I think that's in our society and around the world, wherever you are.
Yes.
You know, monetary value does equate to some form of success.
It does.
But you're actually saying then, for you, if you want to say what is my success by way of ratio, it may not be my number one.
It's not my number one
goal.
It's not.
My focus.
It's not my focus. It never has been, because I've been without. I've been we've been below the poverty line. Single mother, bought a house on welfare for $1. That was my mother's goal.
How did you do that?
There was a lottery or a raffle of some sort that they had, and this is in Indiana in the 70s. And my mother, who worked for the telephone company right out of high school at 20 years old as a secretary, left my father after so many years of marriage and applied for what we call government assistance for Section 8 housing. One of the programs was that you had to stay in this house and you had to pay your rent, which was at that time maybe under $20 a month. You had to pay it on time, and you had to stay within no infractions, meaning you had to be on time with your rent, you couldn't have any issues with the house or with the landlord, and you had to be in good standing with the public assistance program. I don't know if it was offered to all mothers at that time, but my mother was one of the few that was chosen.
Listen, intelligence is intelligence, right?
Yes.
And opportunity is taking advantage of the resources that are there in front of you. So
yes.
Whether you have a degree or not, we're talking about, of course this is business, we're talking about business, go and get your degree. But in society, I think you have to use the intelligence that you have to make best use for yourself.
You do.
So, I mean, that was a smart move by your mother, obviously.
It really was.
Yeah.
And I don't even think she realized because she literally owned that home right out, full, and all she had to pay was taxes on it every year. Well up until the late 90s, early 2000s when she finally sold the house. So she had this property, something that I don't think my mother herself even knew that she was gonna have, or that she could even be a homeowner, much less own anything.
Your mother made a successful move, therefore she was successful.
She was. She really was. And I think that poured into my sister and myself. You know, we all have gone our separate ways. We all have had jobs that we've pursued in different projects and aspects of the business, etc. Because again, we all kind of started. It's funny that now I think about it, we all kind of did start as secretaries. I started as a secretary, you know, my first real job outside of high school. I waited tables for a few months or a few years off and on. And then I worked for this particular company, like you said, and then they set me in this room, and it was like, you know, you've got this potential, you're very talkative, you're great with the customers, we can really use you here. And I thought, I didn't even know what all this meant and what I could potentially do with this gift that you have. And here I was sitting on this and not realizing it. And so when I first went to school, I thought, what am I going to go to school for? What can I go to school for that I can actually use in real life? Business was one of the things that everybody that like I said, I had been exposed to.
It's funny because it's almost second nature, but you didn't see that right away.
I really did.
It's something that, wow, you grew up with it.
Yep.
And because the obvious was maybe a little hard to see.
It was so much that it was. I almost want to say I avoided it to some degree because it was always in the home with my stepfather, and having to deal with his business associates and having to act and speak a certain way. You were expected to not be a child at times. You know, at 10 years old, you still had to answer the phone, ask who was calling. You had to be able to repeat the messages back to them, take messages verbatim, speak clearly, enunciate your words. You know, I'm 10 years old. Like, what do I know about enunciation, and what do I know about, business?
Yes. And I understand that it may have been tough, especially for 10 years old, but at the same time, it was good training.
Oh gosh, it was. You would be surprised at the things that you take on, even as a kid, and you hated it or you didn't enjoy them, that stick with you. And the first time I think I walked into the office and I applied for this job, I went to the job interview. The gentleman interviewed me and myself and another young lady at the same time. And this young lady actually had worked for the company in a different part of the country or state. And I remember sitting there thinking, I was kind of deflated. I remember thinking, he's not going to hire me. She's already worked for the company before. She's got all this experience. And he asked us some very basic questions, and I rattled off what I felt like was the best answers at the time. And she spoke, and there were some things that even she spoke, and I was going like, what is she talking about? You know, and I remember sitting there thinking and then I got the call back. And I told him, after I got the job, I said, I thought you were going to hire the other lady. And he said, yeah. He said, but some of her answers, even though she'd worked for the company, he said, I just wasn't quite understanding, where she was coming from. I thought, I'm glad that I was the only one in the room who felt that way. And I remember thinking, again, what was it that I was going to bring to this office or this environment that nobody else could bring? And you don't realize that most businesses are looking for something that's going to keep their customers and their people coming back. I don't care what it is. I don't care if you're selling, like you said, if it's IT. I don't care if you're selling saddlebags, if you're selling animals or what have you. No matter what type of business you go into, the people are not going to keep coming back, even if they love your product, if they're not pleased with how they're being treated. Customer service is like a huge thing now. And
always has been. It
has been, and we're getting away from it because we're so technically divided, and we have this huge window of opportunity to reach out and have this great customer service and interaction with each other. But everything is technically, we're everything. You order online. You have no personal interaction with anybody until you have a problem, and then all of a sudden you have to go through all these links and clicks and phone calls and press one and dial two, and then you finally get to somebody, a human being, and the last thing you want to hear is somebody who's deflated. Okay, yeah, what's your problem, Bob? Well, what can we do for you?
Yeah.
You want somebody that's caring, that's passionate, that's going to be able to help you get to point A to point B help you with your problem, either fix it or give you your money back.
And time again, what we see in like case studies, customer service always ranks supreme in many ways. It supports your business. It supports the support units internal within your business.
Exactly.
So keep that in mind. She had early on training. Ask yourself, what early on training do you have? It may not be the same situation as she had, where it was actually in the home. But in many cases, especially for anybody who's watching this who's young and debating, well, what my parents are telling me, it doesn't make any sense.
Yes, it does.
It probably does. It probably does.
Yes,
Let's choose another card.
Okay. Oh gosh. Where do you see yourself in 20 years? Ooh.
20 years down the line. Let's zoom forward 20 years. Okay.
That's so far out, but you don't even.
We're going to be in a position where actually we have taxis now that we drive. 20 years from now, we will probably be flying in drone-style taxis. That's going to be a commonplace. Okay. The game that we are in will be completely different. The technology will be at a more heightened level. Where do you see yourself in 20 years? Just in general. Doesn't have to be in this sci-fi scenario that I just gave.
Right.
But in 20 years, where would you like to see yourself?
I would love to have my own business and be able to work from my home. I've taken a huge interest in psychology, and one of the things that I'm pursuing, and of course in 20 years I feel that it should be up and running. I feel like I should be fairly comfortable with it, and maybe even, I don't know, looking to retire. I don't know, in 20 years, that's a long time. But actually working as a psychologist or a life coach, career coach, mentor, but doing it from home so that I'm still home with my husband, maybe my grandchildren, great-grandchildren. I don't know at that point in time. That's a long way. But working for myself is a big thing for me. Being able to work and pursue my own goals and dreams and to help build my own goals and dreams. I think that when you work for someone else, and that's fine, it's not to discourage anyone that works for any large companies, because they've earned their rights, and they've dug in the trenches, and they start from the bottom as well. There's nothing wrong with helping someone else to grow and build their business. But what about your business? I really would like to have my own, have something else.
She's talking entrepreneurialism.
Yes.
20 years, she's going to see herself as entrepreneur. Maybe that's not so fine-tuned as this is the area that I want to do.
Right.
But an entrepreneur.
Yes. Yes, very much so.
Next card.
Okay. What are your personal strengths and weaknesses?
Ooh, personal strengths and weaknesses.
Oh. Okay, let's start with weaknesses.
Okay.
Is that okay, or you want to start with strengths?
It's up to you.
Okay. Weaknesses. Procrastination. Yes, procrastination is definitely my biggest weakness. I don't know why. It is usually things that I know that are either going to take a large amount of time, a lot of research, and this is just speaking in general. Like specifically right now, I'm having to work on a case study that I have been dreading.
So, because procrastination is something that maybe 90% of people might have an issue with across the board. It's just very general.
Yes.
What do you do? Excuse me. What do you do to overcome that procrastination? How do you get over it?
I have to schedule it. Like, I plan it. I sit down. I leave the house if it's something I need to work on. Set aside time for it. Put yourself in a position where you can't get up. You can't be distracted. Like I said, I go to the library. I'll stay at the office, close my door. But I physically have to make myself start it. And then I'll say, okay, and I'm not going to get up, I'm not going to move, I'm not going to leave until I'm finished. And I'll find a stopping place. Or I'll finish the entire thing. I've left the house and been gone. My husband's like, you've been gone for 5 hours. And I'm like, really, have I? And I will literally sit in the library, in the study room, and I listen to my headphones. I try to close everything, all the other distractions out. I turn my phone off. so that no one calls, nothing comes through. If it's a text message, anything would pop up because your distraction, especially when it's something you don't want to do or you dread doing.
So we got procrastination, right? And
Yes.
we have some methods that you personally do to overcome those procrastination.
Yes.
Now, that's a weakness. What's your strength? What's that thing that you want to just say, listen, I want to build on my strengths. I want to work on my weaknesses, overcome those. But this strength, hands down, this is me.
I can't even say if there's any one specific thing. You know, I've been told that I have a gift for gab. That could be a blessing and a curse, but I choose to accept it as a blessing. I was taught to speak very frank. My mother was a very, very blunt and very outspoken woman, and not everybody can take that. And so I had to learn how to do it, to be able to express myself, both to make sense of stuff I'm intellectually inclined and also to do it eloquently. There is a way to do things and say things to people so that they understand you, but also that they're not turned off and turned and think, oh my, she's so arrogant, she's so cocky, and she's so all these other things. And I'm still working on that. But what I found is that the more that I've worked on it and the more I've adjusted my tone, the way you describe things, the way you describe yourself even. And a lot of people want you to sell yourself in business whenever you go out there, whether it's a job interview or whether it's once you've gotten a job. Once they want to sit down and talk with you and you want to have to explain to them why you're the best person for this account on this job, whether you're an ad advertiser or you're in whatever you're in.
And do you think that having that gift of gab is something that you've utilized throughout pretty much your life?
Yes.
Means that we're talking about, of course, this is business related, but do you think that that's an effective tool that even as you travel international, right?
Yes.
So even as you say you've been to various parts of the world,
Yes,
that's been your reality, that's been your experience. Having that gift of gab, do you think that that's something that has aided you towards your success?
It has. Being able to go out and speak to people, whether they speak your language, having that initiative to say, you know what, I'm not going to be afraid to speak to this person, even though English may be their second language. But then it's also challenged me in ways to learn second and third languages. So, I'm not proficient or fluent like you, but I mean, I can speak enough Japanese to get by. And traditionally speaking, even though you've taken a class in Japanese, to retain that information is a little bit more difficult, and actually to use it out in a social setting or even in a business setting, it's even more hesitant because you're like, am I saying it right? Am I saying the right things? But when you're a talker like myself, you automatically start to make friends, and you will feel more confident, and people are more likely to say, oh, good job, much oversight, kawaii, and it's like, oh, okay. And then I'll say, how do you say that? Because I'll hear them say something, and I'll be like, mocho kudasai. I tell them, how do you say it again? Say it again slowly for me so I can understand what that is. And then eventually you have another aspect in general. You're speaking in public.
Yes.
Being able to speak and hold a conversation with someone, like I said, my husband being in the military, I have to sit sometimes at a dinner across the room, across the table from state dignitaries. You're talking about captains, you're talking about gunny sergeants, men and women who have served this country for 20, 30 years, and they aren't used to just sitting. You want to be able to sit and have a conversation with these people who travel the world, who speak to dignitaries, who speak with the state and government officials. These are the men and women who can make or break this country. In uniform, needless to say. But also, I can also sit and have a conversation with someone who doesn't even have a high school diploma. Sure. And I don't want them to feel inferior. I don't want them to feel like, she's got this degree, because that was the type of person and people that I feared having a conversation with, because I'm wondering.
Goes back to that scenario you in that boardroom.
Yes, and
right.
Feeling inferior to them and not feeling as intelligent. And so I try to make everyone feel as comfortable as possible, whether it's someone who's like you yourself as a doctor in position, or if it's an undergraduate student that's coming to the university for the first time, never been to college, never been out of the country, they're military, and now all of a sudden they're in a whole new world, and it's a whole different experience that they're getting ready to embark on. And all of a sudden, they find themselves being this little fish in this great big pond. And it swallows you up if you let it.
Yeah.
So.
Good. Let's try another.
Oh, this isn't the one I wanted. Okay. Attainment scale. Increase common sense. And 1, business knowledge, street smarts, social responsibility, or other.
Okay, we're gonna shoot these easily. Knock these out. 1, 2, 3.
So I have one of each, or do I pick one?
Well, we're looking at, the question is actually says attainment scale, and a scale of 1 to 10.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so increase common sense in business knowledge. Do you feel that your business knowledge has increased?
Oh gosh, yes.
Since you've been in the business program?
Yes, I have. Definitely.
On a scale of 1 to 10, would you say you're at, because you come from a business background, do you think that it's increased to a level of 7, level 8, level 9? Where do you think you're at in terms of the increase in your business knowledge?
I definitely say a 7. I mean, my exposure was, because I was so young, I didn't really grasp the concept of the business side of things, other than how to, like I said, the secretary. I felt like a very young secretary for business. Now I actually understand business, how it works, the purpose of running a successful business, how it's even possible or feasible to run a successful business. These are things that as a child or even growing up, I had no clue. And even to sit across the room and somebody say, hey, you want to open your own business? And say, yeah. And I said, well, what do you want to do? And I blare off, oh, I want to sell cupcakes. Where to even begin, I wouldn't have known. I couldn't have told you. I wouldn't have known anything about revenue. I wouldn't have known anything about picking a venue. I wouldn't have known anything about how to advertise, how to pick a logo, how to do all these aspects, because all of those can make or break your business before it even gets off the ground. And I never knew how much work really went into it. And even at that young age, in our household, it took all of us as a family to be able to help run this business. And I really didn't understand that. And now I do.
Let's be clear. You have different kinds of businesses. You have corporate Fortune 500 business. You have smaller businesses. You have mom and pop business. You have startup businesses. Never underestimate the idea of what a business is. Even businesses that are now super successful, right? Meaning they're at that Fortune 500 level. In all cases, there was a start. They started somewhere. Did they start off with the millions, the hundreds of thousands of dollars? Some cases, yes. Most cases, not at all. Most cases, they're humble beginnings, okay? So never write off the fact that you have a great idea and you can be self-learned, means that you study for yourself, and we're at a time period where the self-learning is probably more easy than ever in recorded history. And what do I mean by that? We now have the internet. Ask the computer a question, you're going to get an answer to choose. Matter of fact, you can choose multiple answers, okay? So with that just being said, that kind of leads into the other question.
Yes. The next one was street smarts.
Street smarts. Okay.
On a scale of 1 to 10, my increased common sense and street smarts.
How do you feel your background, you growing up, has aided you throughout your life? Now that you say, yes, I'm in college, yes, I'm working professional, okay, I've traveled and I've done a lot of things, but there were some things that weren't a part of the institutional education that I received.
Not at all.
That yet not being inside of the institutional side, these things still aided me being an institutional worker, being inside the classroom. Okay? Do you feel that there were certain skill sets or certain things that you achieved street smart wise that assisted and aided you?
Yes, there is. And I can't even pinpoint. I'm still, I talk to my family, who that's how they thrive. I don't understand how they make ends meet sometimes, but I just think if they could take that same common street smart or knowledge that they have and tweak it just a little bit, we have some pretty ruthless business owners. I mean, I have a cousin that the hustle and the drive, a single mother, 2 young boys, and it's just unreal at some of the things that she's been able to do. And I'm just like, my hat's off to her. I'm like, you're doing it, Ashley. Like, it's like, and again, this is not a woman that has a college degree. Ashley doesn't even have a high school diploma. But when it comes to money and making sense and making sure that things are being allocated properly, set aside for bills, set aside for her boy's schooling, making sure that she's there for her children, that's just,
She knows what she's doing.
it really is. Like you said, some people think it's common sense. You can say it's street smarts. I don't know what you call it, but that's not something that you can necessarily teach someone, is to prioritize things like that in a classroom. I really don't. I think there's some things you can teach someone how to break down a budget, but that's based off of an income, a continuous income that you're going to be expecting to get monthly, weekly, bi-weekly, what have you. You're talking about somebody that may or may not have a job next week or next month, and still having to make ends meet, and still having to feed and clothe 2 children, and make sure that her rent's paid and that her car note is going to be paid. And she does everything from sell hair. She's selling eyelashes now, and this is something that she will go online, Google a wholesale company, or venture into one. And there's several that I think she's ventured and she's tried out over the time. And right now, like I said, her thing is eyelashes. And I can't even tell you where or how she even came up with this idea. I think someone else was doing it and they thought, hey, this would be a good idea. And next thing I know,
entrepreneurialism has many faces.
She's brought the product online at wholesale at cost. She brings it back. She's worked out of a shop and she actually applies the eyelashes. So now she's even furthering her exposure. So now even though someone else can say, oh, well, I can go online and get those same eyelashes, yeah, but you can't apply them the way she does. And so she
has a niche.
Yeah, she does the eyelashes and she does the eyebrows with it. And that was something, like I said, when 5-6 years ago, that wasn't the big thing, was these eyelashes and these aesthetic microdermabrasion, all these other things. Something that I'm sure that no one even considered. And she's cornered this market in this small little Indianapolis East Side town, which isn't very popular. It's not a grossly, it's a very poverty-stricken area, but this is something that's important to this community, and so she's been able to pick something in a community that she's found that works for everybody, that everybody likes or needs, and she's found a way to make it work for herself. And I can't even begin to tell you how that just
with that even being
impresses
said,
me.
so this brings me to this thought, to say this is where you are a personal change agent, right?
Yes.
Meaning that this degree, especially since we're talking business, you're going to get this business degree soon.
Yes.
From that, when you go back to home, when you go back to the community, and your family sees you, whether possibly you are the first in your immediate family to have that degree.
Yes.
So what's going to happen is that's going to be positive reinforcement to say, she did it, I can do it too.
I hope. Yes.
Let alone, you also operate as a point of authority to say to your cousin, to your niece, you're doing business, I understand. Let me give you some pointers here to further this business,
Yes.
to take this business up to the next step.
Yes.
Okay? You have to apply these principles. It's the principles of application that are in theory, from case studies or whatnot. Matter of fact, you're in a great position because you can balance both.
Yes.
From the fact that you were in business, from a family point of view, plus a theoretical side.
Yes.
So my challenge to you is to take on that role of being that change agent. So when you do go back home, flaunt it a little bit. Say, listen, I got this degree.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Let them know.
And tell them what I've learned.
Absolutely.
And try to put it to use. I agree. I definitely would like to do that and kind of take her under my wing and say, look, actually, these are some things that you can do. Whether or not she'll take it or not, she's pretty headstrong.
Gotcha.
We'll see.
Let's take one more.
Okay. Social responsibility. Again, that's a bit of what we just talked about, social responsibility and going back to the community. But if I had to attain it on a scale of 1 to 10, as far as increasing my social responsibility, I fully agree that I feel like the more successful or the more education that I've gained over the years, that I am responsible with going back and being able to share that wealth of experience and knowledge with others, whether they're business minded or if they're just military wives, mothers, young mothers like myself, women of color, women of other ethnicities, minority women, or just women in general. I feel that yes, because we've all been there. And even though some of us have mothers, grandmothers, aunts, uncles, whatever, mentors, somebody in our lives that says, kind of steer us in the right directions and kind of help us through along the way, we still sometimes need to see someone else in our own eyes, through our own walk of life, who's dealing with a lot of things that we're dealing with. I felt like maybe I had my mom who was married to an active duty guy in the Army. Maybe she could shed some light on some things when it came to military. And her experience, though, was completely different from mine. She never lived overseas. This was her second marriage.
I mean, I would imagine that when you tell family and others, hey, I've been to these countries, they're pretty surprised, right?
They are. I think that one of my uncles kind of told me one time, not too long ago, he said, Regan, I'm not surprised because I always saw you doing and going to these places. And that was, like, I got choked up. Like, I was like, wow, because I didn't see it. So how did he see it? But he said, you never really fit. You never really belonged. And he stayed in the hood, And I kind of laugh at him. I'm like, man, come on. But he said, no, you didn't. And so he only expected great things. And I'm like, I've just begun. Like, this is nothing. I don't feel like I have done a lot. I'm probably the only person, in my family to ever live abroad, both Asia and Europe. And now to have this degree, and to have achieved all these great things. But the people who I felt would have benefited most, I would have loved to have shared this exposure and this experience with my parents, and of course they passed on. And so to not have that and be able to see that look, like every parent wants for their kids, to see that look of success and that pride. And I remember the first time my mother came to my home, and I was 30 years old, not even 30, I was like 28, 29 years old, and I bought my first home in South Georgia. And I remember her coming to my home and how proud she was and how impressed she was, She kept saying, how many 30-year-olds do you know that have their own home, and own it and have a car, and, these things. And again, but this was, to me, when I look back on it now, obviously knowing differently, but at the time I thought, I felt like she was basing my success on all these worldly things and all this, this brick and mortar. And a fire could have came and take all that out. One good flood and I've been homeless, and I kept thinking how small-minded that was of her. But to her, that was huge.
And it is huge. I would argue and say that that is huge for a 30-year-old. And I think across the board, because being in the United States, I think we take a lot of things for granted.
We do.
Meaning that these accomplishments that you have, one, being able to achieve and have that American dream of buying a house, yes, right? Mm-hmm. Within your 30s. That's a huge accomplishment, I think, within any age group, within any culture. But you've done it.
Yes.
Your grandmother, she saw it.
She eventually did, after 60 years.
After 60 years, yes. Especially probably at a time period for her that may not have been real, that may not have been a reality at all.
Right.
Not even been something that was even achievable for certain aspects of things that prevented her from going and getting an education, getting the job that she wanted. There were probably a tremendous amount of roadblocks.
The issue back then, though, was, and like I tried to explain to my mom, my sister, was that, like you said, all these roadblocks that they were given, but also I had an advantage. I had an active duty family member, or husband at the time, spouse. I had 2 incomes coming in, so it wasn't just me by myself. And so even to go out and apply for a home loan, like a VA loan, was, it was almost like, where do we sign? You didn't have to beg. We didn't have to go to bank after bank after bank to keep applying for these loans. Whereas I'm pretty sure back then, years ago, as a single woman of color by themselves trying to apply for a home loan in the 40s, and then again in the 70s or the 80s with my mom, and even if she was married at the time with my dad, was unheard of. You weren't going to get a loan, if anything, because they would have based it off of your sole income. and obviously you don't make enough in their eyes. They didn't care how many jobs you did or how many things you did to make that mortgage payment at the end of the month. They wanted to know that when and if this thing goes south, where are we going to get our money? And we want to be able to come back and take retain our collateral from you. And for them it was difficult. I didn't see it that way.
Yeah, and that's the point.
I thought it was like I had help.
Yeah. But another aspect is you took advantage of that resource.
I did.
From the fact that you had your income, your husband's income,
that's right,
the VA, but you didn't just say, oh, these things are there. Okay, I'm going to let these things pass. No, you took advantage of it. So she's taking advantage of getting that education. She took advantage of buying a house. See the opportunities that are there for you. Don't let the roadblock of saying, hey, I feel that I'm in a certain age group, therefore I cannot get that education that I've always wanted.
Right.
Ask yourself, is this what I want to do? Go off and go do it. Make a way. And that's what she's doing. She made a way.
Yes.
Let's choose another one.
Okay. Oh, this one or another card?
New card.
Okay. How committed are you to be successful? I don't think there's a level of commitment I can take. There is no stopping. It's until I take my last breath. As long as I'm living and as long as I'm standing.
You reached the goal. I got my degree. Now what?
There's always going to be, for me at least speaking, there's going to be another goal, and I try to make it.
Do you think you're going to create new goals as you go along?
I have them already in mind. Like I've already, and the thing is like the way I was taught was to, dream big, and then you have to, lay out your plan. So each goal is a small step forward. My first step or my first goal was to get my associate's degree. Okay, next goal, bachelor's degree. Okay, next goal, attain gainful employment in said environment. I have set to told myself that I have an idea where I want to go when we leave Japan, and in this realm or in this field where kind of I want to be at. Higher ed has obviously been very well and very lucrative for me. It's also paved and opened up a lot of other doors for me to pursue other educational goals, such as my master's. And like I was explaining to you, why would I not take advantage of that when they're paying me to go to school? I'd be a fool not to do that. And so I'm from Northern Virginia area, so that's not, it goes without saying for me to continue school or to continue working for the university, and to see how far that level could take me. And that may even open up other doors.
Sure.
And so that's where I come. So when I say those goals are endless, it means because once even if I attain that goal, let's say I reach my master's within that 20-year mark, and I've traveled the world, clearly. I've been everywhere, I've done everything. There's always still going to be something I feel like that I could potentially do. And these are just my own personal things that I always want to work on. My health, because I want to be here for my children and my grandchildren. My marriage, that's something that, you work and you strive for. I've been married 20 years.
Congratulations.
I know. Awesome. That is a job in itself. And that's something that I would like to work at. I want a relationship to be better. I want it to grow. And so, like I said, there's always going to be something that I'm going to be attaining and trying to work towards. As far as my business goes, that's going to be something because it's going to be constantly changing and evolving. And you're going to have to be able to grow and move, like you said. Right now, we're having to turn on a switch and push a pedal and switch gears to move in a car. 5-10 years from now, or you look back, I was telling a student the other day, 15 years ago, to do a paper in school, you had to set your headers and your footers. You had to know how many inches there were from your left.
You guys know what a typewriter is?
Yeah, you had to set up your margins, and you had to memorize how many spaces there were between your heading and your foot and your body, and the abstract and the conclusion of your paper. And now you literally click MLA. APA, Chicago style.
Yeah.
And it sets up all the margins, you just start typing.
Yeah.
And it was like, who saw that coming?
Yeah.
I didn't.
Yeah.
And it's the same thing. 10, 15 years from now, we're going to be sitting back and thinking,
Sure.
How did we get here?
And the thing is, education is one way for that preparation.
Yes.
Right?
And it's going to be something that's going to teach me every time that computer gets changed or every time there's an upgrade. I have to know how to work this thing.
And you know what?
To keep my business up.
Like it or not, education, or I should say technology, will continue.
It will.
It's continuing to evolve, it's continuing to grow, so we're going to become more integrated in our everyday lives.
Exactly.
Okay, so the educational component of it is continuous equally as well. Even after you get your degree, that doesn't say learning stops, obviously.
No, always,
Obviously it doesn't.
no.
That's where the self-learning kicks in.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
So let's just say I got my master's, I get my doctorate degree, then the self-learning kicks in. It does not stop, because why? The technology is supported by what? It's supported by us, the human being. As long as we're alive, we're going to continue to evolve and to grow.
Right.
Got it. Let's choose one more.
One, a good one.
All right.
Let's struggle a little. The green ones are all hard, I think. Let's see. What do your daily habits add up to? I think I've had to touch on this a little bit. Each day, like you said, you have to do something that's going to get you towards closer to your goal, no matter how small it is. I won't necessarily wake up every day and say, I need to write 3 papers to get this much closer to my bachelor's degree. No, I keep it small. I keep it realistic. And if you don't make it too broad, then it's actually easier to achieve, and you don't get so overwhelmed. And that's my issue. So, if I think too broad, too big, then I start thinking, oh my God, I got 5 papers this semester, only 8 weeks, and I have work, and I have, No, if I don't look at it that way, it's like you have between now and Sunday at midnight to get this paper in. Just one. It's only 3 to 5 pages on this topic. So today, I'm going to go ahead and research my topic. Depending on how busy I am or what happens throughout that day or that week, I may get further along than I plan to. That's my goal. Like when I get up, when I'm getting dressed for work, I'm thinking about all the things I have to do. Okay, if my kid has got a doctor's appointment, if I need to pick him up from basketball, how are these things going to fit into my day? And if I'm going to have help that day, if I'm going to have my son or my husband who's going to be able to pick them up, so that way I can go directly from work to meet with a student, or I can go straight to the library after work, or if I can go ahead and start my research without any interruptions. So I have to make sure that the daily goal is always focusing on the long-term goal. You think of the small-term goal as just a temporary situation that you're experiencing. There's going to be some things, like you said, there's going to be some roadblocks are going to come, always. Yeah. And you have to be able to roll with them. If I didn't get my research accomplished today, or at least a portion of it, or at least I have time to even consider like where I'm going to start, even picking a topic, I've started.
Here's the situation, here's the scenario. We're going to draw some conclusions here. Regan is an excellent communicator. I think you realize that she does too,
yes.
Okay? And I think for her, as she builds upon that, that only increases her skill sets. Here's something to always think about. The key word is vocation. Find your vocation. Find your vocation and build upon that. Make that something that is uniquely yourself. Tailor the institutional education. Make that add to your personal vocation and build upon that.
Yes.
And I think that's one of the aspects that you have done. And I think that you've realized that now, that because you're a great communicator, your communication skills, that could drive into almost any career field. Now it's just a position of saying, this is the area that I want to go in. Whether it's something that I'm passionate about, whether it's something that I feel that is good because it fits me, it fits my mold, whether it's because it's lucrative as a career set that I want to get into. Your vocation and your strength is your ability to communicate with
yes.
others. As you build upon that, I think that that's going to be something that takes you in the direction that you want to go, and it's going to be very fulfilling for you. That's my opinion. I want you to, everybody, leave some comments, okay? As we're talking, I hope that you've been following. Definitely, as I mentioned before, like the channel. More importantly, leave some comments, leave some questions. Tell Regan how you feel about her presentation today. I thought it was awesome. I thought she did a great job. And I think that she's going to continue. She's on the pathway to achieving and reaching that degree that she knows is something that she must do for herself, that is self-defined.
Yes.
So Regan, as I close, what final words would you like to give?
I just want everybody to know that have faith in yourself, believe in yourself, know that anything and everything that you want and you can achieve and everything that you desire can be yours. And this is just not monetary. It can be whether it's your degree, if it's your dream job, working for that Fortune 500 company, owning your own business, whatever it is, dream big, stay focused, and always work towards that goal.
All right. Thank you so much, Regan.
Thank you.
All
I
right.
enjoyed it. Thank you so
enjoyed
much. I'm glad I came.
Absolutely. Everybody stay tuned. We have some more great personal profiles from students. Thank you again. Like the channel, everybody. See you soon. Bye-bye.
Awesome.
Awesome.
Oh, good. Thank you.
Very good.